Welcome back to the Week 5 edition of my weekly NFL Pick'em. Another crazy week of football is in the books, and it's officially October, the best sports month of the year. After some technical difficulties last week getting my video uploaded on time, I'm actually glad that not as many people were able to see some of my shameful picks, but I think we're all starting to get more of an idea and understanding of who these teams really are, so this should be a much more predictable month of football. But regardless of who you root for, I think we can all agree that the officiating might be at an all-time bad right now. I mean, these guys are acting like it's their first day on the job. I don't want to get on a rant because we're still trying to keep this intro under 1 minute, so hit that like button if the refs blew a call against your team this week. We didn't hit the goal of 1,000 likes last week, but I will take the blame on that. We've got the Lions and the Dolphins on byes this week. Cue the Dolphins losing to the bye week memes. Now let's get started with these picks. On Thursday Night Football, we've got Rams at Seahawks. Bros, I'm getting killed by these Thursday Night Football games, and now I'm worried that it's a mental block like Andy Dalton in primetime games or Kirk Cousins on the road. But like, what happened in LA last week? The Rams got stomped by the Buccaneers, and in such surprising fashion that I'm unsure of how good this team actually is. I'm sure that they're ready to get back on the field after looking past the Bucs and prove themselves once again, but the Seahawks had a potential trap game of their own in the Cardinals, and they managed to handle their business in Arizona. And how about that pick of Kyler Murray on the screenplay by Jadeveon Clowney? That was one of the many ways that he really could make this defense legitimately scary down the stretch. The key matchup here is easy. How does the Seahawks offensive line fare against Aaron Donald and Clay Matthews? Clay Matthews is having a revival in LA and is benefiting from all the attention that Aaron Donald gets and leads the Rams with 5 sacks so far. And it doesn't feel as scary or looming to go into Seattle to play anymore. I mean, the Saints just did it a couple weeks ago with a backup quarterback, but night games in prime time still seem to give it that allure that it is a tough place to play. So I'm going to go Seahawks win 27-23. Jaguars at Panthers. Breaking news, the Jaguars have found a quarterback. It has taken them top draft picks, absurd amounts of money in free agency over the course of a decade, but this guy, Gardner Minshew, has got it. I shouldn't have doubted Gardner Minshew last week, but the Broncos Stadium, whatever we're calling it these days, that also used to be a tough place to play, and I thought it might be too much for the Jaguars roster as a whole. But Leonard Fournette, I mean, wow, a career-high 220 rushing yards after he deserved all the criticism in the world for his performance against the Titans. This man put the team on his back for once and brought Minshew along with him to put the clutch finishing touches on multiple drives to take the lead in the fourth quarter. Maybe it was the high altitude in Denver that made Fournette feel a little bit lighter on his feet or something, but he was more explosive than we've seen in a long time. And then Kyle Allen and the Panthers, they won in similar fashion, riding Christian McCaffrey in the defense to a surprising road win against the Texans. I said the key matchup last week was Kyle Allen versus JJ Watt, but man, I never expected Kyle to put JJ through the spin cycle like this. This kid might also have it, whatever it is. This Panthers defense has Ron Rivera written all over it, and I really don't think that Riverboat Ron gets enough credit for keeping this unit playing at a high level and basically reloading with a new scheme this year. They're a top 5 defense and will be Gardner Minshew's toughest test yet. Now, losing Kawan Short for the year is a big blow, but former first round pick Vernon Butler now has a chance to prove it on the field in a contract year. I really don't know who to pick in this one. My home team tiebreaker has been getting me into a lot of trouble this year. These teams are so similar in so many ways, with these young quarterbacks leading them to unexpected wins, with veteran quarterbacks dealing with injuries, and honestly, I'm not sure if either quarterback deserves the starting job right now when they come back. I'm going to stick with my home team theory here. I don't think that Leonard Fournette's going to recreate what he did in Denver last week, but I do think that Christian McCaffrey will continue in his offensive player of the year campaign, which is what I predicted going into the season. So give me the Panthers at home, 21-20. Cardinals at Bengals. So the bad news is that this game is actually going to happen. We're going to let this happen. The good news is that somebody's going to get their first win. The Cardinals are going to have some moments this year where they finally put it all together and actually get some wins, and this is their best opportunity so far of the young season. The Bengals had been at least putting up a fight until that Monday Night Football game against the Steelers. Andy Dalton predictably struggled in a primetime game, no thanks to his offensive line, which gave up 8 sacks, and now it looks like the Dolphins are going to get a battle for that number 1 overall pick. Set a reminder for their Week 16 matchup. Not only will that be between 2 really bad teams, but it'll be very close to the end of the year where it will legitimately make sense for one of those teams to fix the game in favor of a loss. But in this one, the key matchup here will be the Cardinals' veteran pass rush versus the Bengals' offensive line with Bobby Hart, and maybe even Cordy Glenn comes back at left tackle for the Bengals. Cordy Glenn could help the Bengals immensely in theory, but he's likely washed up too, and he's just going to land on the injury report with another self-reported injury like the concussion that's kept him off the field this entire year so far. Cardinals win 23-17. Falcons at Texans. Yeah, it's time to get off the Falcons bandwagon, and it's a damn shame because there's just too much talent on this roster for them to be playing the way they are. We might be seeing Dan Quinn's final season as the Falcons head coach. The Texans should be equally embarrassed for their performance against the Panthers and Kyle Allen at home last week. These are two teams I had high hopes for coming into the season, but I'm concerned that this underachieving has more to do with the guys calling the shots than the players on the field. The stats have said that the Falcons defense has been better this year, but their secondary made Marcus Mariota look like Tom Brady last week, so I expect Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins to get back on track this weekend and hang up a few touchdowns on this Falcons defense. Texans win 35-28. Buccaneers at Saints. The Bucs came and showed off like they were premiering in LA, and the offense is beginning to step up as the star of the show here, but it's the defense this year that is getting them the wins in these shootouts like the Rams game. The defense was tragic last year, but Todd Bowles, Shaquille Barrett, and Ndamukong Suh have transformed this entire unit, and before the offense was sailing, it was the defense putting the clamps on Christian McCaffrey like no one else has this year, but we were all too distracted by Cam Newton to realize what they had done. Now, the Saints are continuing to keep the ship afloat while Drew Brees is on the mend. Their resilience and determination is going to be what gets them past the refs in the NFC Championship game this year if they're able to keep this up until Brees returns. In this game, I'm worried about a letdown after such an intense home game on Sunday Night Football. Meanwhile, the Bucs have got to be feeling pretty confident after knocking off the best the NFC has to offer in their house last week, but can they do it again now this week? We're really going to find out what that Bucs defense is all about against Alvin Kamara, I've heard both ways, and that's going to be my key matchup of the week because the Bucs already know how to move the ball on the Saints, and they're just going to be too much for Teddy and the gang to keep up with. Buccaneers win 35-24. Vikings at Giants. Here we go again. Kirk Cousins is on the road, but at least this time he's in an environment that he's familiar with from his time in the NFC East. I'm not sure if that's going to make a difference though. I think the biggest difference that could get this Vikings passing game going on the road this go round would be the fact that the Giants defense is just not the Bears defense, and on paper their pass rush isn't going to be as much of a challenge as Khalil Mack and the Monsters of the Midway. Stephon Diggs is rumored to be on the trade block, and things in Minnesota are another loss or two from just imploding completely. The Vikings have their backs against the wall right now, and the Giants, they're in overachiever mode right now and might not have the same season-saving edge that the Vikings will have this week. Daniel Jones, aka Danny Dimes, is facing the best secondary of his young career, and I think that Saquon Barkley is really going to be dearly missed this week. Vikings win 21-17. Bears at Raiders. The Khalil Mack revenge game takes place in London and not the Black Hole, which is a load of crap by the schedule makers, but probably done as a favor to Raiders fans because I'm sure he's about to take over this game and they didn't want him to have to murder their quarterback in front of a home crowd. Bears quarterback Mitch Trubisky was diagnosed with a dislocated left shoulder and a slight labrum tear. Now, you never want to lose your starting quarterback to an injury, but he may have suffered this injury at the perfect time because everybody was just starting to question his development as an NFL quarterback, but now you'll have to watch Chase Daniel struggle even to maintain the level of production from Trubisky, and I promise you that Bears fans will be desperate to see number 10 back out there once again. Moving on to the Raiders, Vontaze Burfict has finally been suspended for the year, and let me tell you, it is about damn time this dude gets the ban hammer. Hopefully when he applies for reinstatement next year, the league denies him because this guy's just not needed in the sport right now. Other than that, the Raiders were one of the bigger surprises of week 4, and I really like the way this roster is built, but the last few weeks is kind of the roller coaster ride I expected with this team in 2019. They are now 2 weeks into a road trip that lasts over a month and don't play in Oakland again until November. So this trip overseas, sandwiched in the middle, could take its toll on them, and we will likely see that sluggish start we've come to expect in these London games. But yeah, Derek Carr should seriously consider pulling a Trubisky and offer up Mike Glennon to Khalil Mack as a human sacrifice so Carr can play next week against the Packers. Bears win 26-13. Jets at Eagles. Old Sammy Darnold is not ready to come back yet, and the Eagles have had a few extra days of R&R leading up to this game, so it's not looking too good for the Jets. But the Eagles shouldn't be able to run on this Jets defense like they did against the Packers, which would put this game in the hands of Carson Wentz, and he's been shaky when put in this position thus far this season. Look for this game to be closer than expected for maybe 2 to 3 quarters, but the Eagles will survive. Eagles win 24-13. Ravens at Steelers. Turns out the Ravens might not be quite as good as they looked against some pretty bad teams in the first 2 weeks of the season. Another factor here is an observation I've made in the past, and that's familiarity being the Ravens' downfall. Teams that have seen Lamar Jackson and this offensive scheme up close are better prepared to stop it or at least contain it the second go round. Marquise Hollywood Brown is supposed to be the X factor to negate that and make this offense a little bit more vertical and unpredictable, but he didn't get it going against the Browns cornerbacks. But the Steelers secondary has been such a mess that they uncharacteristically sent a first-round pick for a guy to fix the back end of their defense. Problem is, Minkah Fitzpatrick is also the same guy that Marquise Brown torched in week 1 when he was a member of the Dolphins. Does Brown do it again, or does that familiarity and a chance for redemption help Minkah and the Steelers contain the Ravens offense? The Steelers defense is showing improvement, but they had to dig deep for that offensive game plan to ensure a win against the Bengals on Monday Night Football. And you're not exactly displaying confidence in your quarterback when you take the ball out of his hands to allow a backup running back to get the direct snap. This offense might need more smoke and mirrors than the Ravens right now. Give me the Ravens winning 31-23. Bills at Titans. The Bills game against the Patriots went about as well as you could hope for and still lose the game. But to add insult to injury, their biggest loss would be Josh Allen to concussion protocol. If Matt Barkley has to start a quarterback, the Bills are going to have to lean on their defense even more to keep them in it. And by even more, I mean it's going to take some turnovers, preferably and ideally return for a touchdown, just to take some pressure off of this offense. Luckily on the other side, the Titans used up about 45% of their annual offensive production last week, so they're primed for a letdown this week. But if they keep this offensive pace moving forward, Taylor Lewan, their left tackle, is going to end up getting all the credit because he comes back this week after missing the first 4 games due to suspension. Lewan is a mentality-changing member of this Titans offensive line, and I'll be watching to see if the offense as a unit has an uptick in their production now. I still don't expect much from the Titans, but I do know that Matt Barkley isn't going to be enough for the Bills. Titans win 16-9. Patriots at Redskins. The Patriots are rolling and winning with their defense stealing the show, and Tom Brady's just driving the bus to wins. It's kind of refreshing actually. Not to mention this early season schedule though has been an absolute cakewalk. Now Belichick gets another young quarterback making his first start after providing, once again, just enough film from the previous week to build a game plan around. It does make sense to roll with Haskins at this point though, because an early lesson against the best coach in NFL history can only help him in the long run. He showed the immaturity that probably kept him on the bench this long in the post-game interview when he channeled his inner Tim Tebow and said that he didn't like losing and it wouldn't happen again. That's cute. Patriots win 34-16. Okay, before we get to the Sunday late afternoon games, let's recap week 4 for those of you that are in the Pick'em group. If you're not in the group yet, you can join with the link in the description or in the pinned comment. The overall season winner gets a $100 NFL Shop gift card. Last week for me was even worse than week 3. I'm now 37, 25, and 2 through 4 weeks, but I'm feeling pretty good about the picks this week, so hopefully I can climb back up the board here. Last week we had a 3-way tie between Yeet Valdez, Metal Rod, and Zeke 1369, each getting 11 games right. And we also have a 3-way tie in the overall rankings with Go Saint It's, hey, that's what it says, Benny J, and Tyler V50. So it's cool to see a fresh group of people up on the top overall rankings each week. Our group now has over 450 people in it and climbed to number 187 overall on ESPN this week. Let's keep it up, guys. Set a weekly reminder on your phone so you can remember to set your picks each week, or you could subscribe and turn on all your notifications for this channel and I'll be your weekly reminder. All right, let's run through the rest of these games. Broncos at Chargers. I don't want to say it's time to stick a fork in the Broncos just yet, but after this week, it just might be. I had faith in this defense because of the pass rush, even though it hadn't shown up yet until the Jaguars game, but losing Bradley Chubb to a torn ACL is a big loss. Now Von Miller has to shoulder the load, and I bet you wish you guys had brought Shaquille Barrett back, but Joe Flacco has shown me enough to believe that he could get it done, while also making me double check how much longer until Drew Lock can return from IR each week. The Chargers are fresh off their Miami vacation, and Melvin Gordon has returned to the backfield. Now, if he's here to prove why the Chargers should have paid him and why he's going to break the bank this offseason for somebody, then this is going to be the turning point for the Chargers season, and I fully expect them to find the balance necessary to make a run here. But he could also stick it to the team and come up limp with an injury from being out of shape. I really hope not. Even if it is the former and he comes here with good intentions, he's still a high injury risk, so get ready to sell him in fantasy football if he has a breakout day against the Broncos defense. They just gave up 220 to Leonard Fournette. Melvin Gordon's legs are about as fresh as they could be. Chargers win 29-20. Packers at Cowboys. This is the second of only 2 late afternoon games, so the NFL is basically saying unless you root for a team in the AFC West, you will watch the Packers at Cowboys and you will like it. The Packers really took their foot off the gas once Davante Adams went down with an injury on Thursday Night Football last week. Aaron Rodgers and Adams have owned the Cowboys quite a few times in Dallas over their careers, but if the foot injury keeps Adams out, then it's going to be a big blow to the Packers offense, especially after their run defense got exposed against the Eagles, but getting linebacker Oren Burks back in the lineup could help a lot. The Saints exposed the Cowboys offense a little last week, and I say a little because the Cowboys coaches showed me something in that game that has plagued them for years, and it's apparent that maybe it was less Scott Linehan to blame, and now Jason Garrett is the common denominator for these predictable game plans. Current offensive coordinator Kellen Moore was being labeled a boy wonder or genius for his play calling in the first 3 weeks, but suddenly all of the wrinkles that made this Cowboys offense so hard to defend had vanished. Maybe Garrett is overthinking things, assuming there could be a rematch maybe with the Saints in the playoffs, and I could see if he didn't want to put some stuff on film and figured the Cowboys should be able to move the ball against this bottom 5 ranked defense and beat a backup quarterback regardless. Well, that not only cost them the game, but it also cost them their left tackle Tyron Smith for a few weeks with a high ankle sprain. The Cowboys offensive line should still be able to mirror the Eagles' efforts in the running game against the Packers without Tyron Smith, as Ezekiel Elliott and the offensive line looks to bounce back from possibly Zeke's worst performance as a pro. If you've seen or heard about the splits for Dak Prescott when he has Tyron Smith and without Tyron Smith, it doesn't look good. But those games were also without Zeke while Zeke was serving that suspension, so I don't want to put too much thought into those numbers, but I wanted to acknowledge that there was a drop off. Don't feel good about this one. I didn't feel great about it last week, but I still think that the Cowboys win 26-24. Colts at Chiefs. The Colts dropping a game against the Raiders isn't disappointing. It's how they lost that was kind of concerning. The defense looked like a shell of itself trying to stop Derek Carr and the Raiders passing attack without Malik Hooker and Darius Leonard. Jacoby Brissett has been playing well, but when you take T.Y. Hilton out of this offense, the unit as a whole is just not that hard to defend. Now the Chiefs are coming off a nail-biter in Detroit, and after everyone made a big deal about it being Patrick Mahomes' first game indoors, I'm sure he's going to be so excited to head back to Arrowhead. Justin Houston is also making his return to Kansas City, and this is being overshadowed a little bit by the Khalil Mack revenge game. Houston could go off in this game and wreck the Chiefs offensive line. In fact, I kind of hope that he does. I think it would be fun to see, but I still don't think it's going to be enough for the Colts to keep pace with the Chiefs offense without T.Y. Hilton. Chiefs win 37-24. Browns at 49ers. Last week, the Browns did to the Ravens what the Titans did to them in week 1. So we have now seen the Browns' floor and their ceiling in the first month of football, and I still expect to see more ceiling than floor moving forward because I haven't quite jumped off the Browns bandwagon just yet. The 49ers are fresh off their bye week, but it still didn't bring their left tackle back, and the team is putting their faith in 6th-round rookie Justin School to hold down the fort until Joe Staley can return from that broken fibula. In his first start at left tackle, he gets to block future Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. This is my key matchup of the week, but it really could be either team's weak offensive line versus the opposition's strength in their defensive line. The 49ers are undefeated right now with much of the credit going to that defensive line of theirs, and despite some sloppy play in those 3 wins, the early bye week may have actually set the 49ers back a little bit while the rest of the league was shaking off any remaining preseason vibes that we had been seeing in the first 2 to 3 weeks with crucial game reps. The 49ers offensive line has looked better this season, but that can all come crashing down when you're having to keep guys like George Kittle in to chip the edge rushers and help your left tackle. I'm not doubting Kyle Shanahan's ability to come up with a great game plan to make up for it, but I do think that the early bye week and the energy needed on Monday Night Football sets the 49ers back early in this one and makes the 49ers too one-dimensional, which allows Myles Garrett and Olivier Vernon to pin their ears back and pressure Garoppolo. Browns win 28-21. That's going to do it for me this week. Thanks for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Remember, our goal is 1,000 likes. Please hit that button. Good luck to everyone's team this week, except for the Packers, and I will see you all in the next video.